So I don't know how closely you follow the news or if you really pay much attention to what's going on in the mortgage world at all. This week, the government announced the proposals for a 99% mortgage, so therefore a mortgage where you only need a 1% deposit. This was reported in The Independent earlier this week. So let's just take a quick look at this article that was in the Evening Standard talking about this particular mortgage product. As you can see, the UK government is reportedly considering backing home loans that would only need a 1% deposit. The Prime Minister Rishi Sunak is reportedly considering a government-backed 99% mortgage scheme, according to The Independent, as I said. Details on the scheme are scant, but the idea is that it would remove one of the major hurdles, which is saving for a deposit for would-be first-time buyers trying to get a foot on the ladder by allowing them to do so with just a 1% deposit. The news, as you can probably guess, comes ahead of the spring budget, which is due to be delivered by Jeremy Hunt on March the 6th. And generally speaking, when there's an upcoming election, one of the ways in which the government try to win votes is by fiddling and tweaking with the housing market, because they all know of the British people's love for property and home ownership. So, what's this scheme all about? Who's it going to help? Is it any good? What are the issues in the housing market in the UK? And what do I think about it? Let's just try and cover that off in this short video today. So first of all, the people that would benefit from this scheme. Obviously, first-time buyers. They are the people that are at the foot of the property ladder, the people who find it hard. So first-time buyers, they're an ideal candidate for this particular product. Secondly, those people who find it difficult to save for a deposit, namely those people that are renting. Because at the end of the day, it's the people that are renting that are the ones that find it most difficult to save. Rents, as we know, have gone up considerably over the last year or so for one reason or another, which we'll talk about in a minute. But those people that are paying these higher rents, on top of all of their other bills, actually don't have the disposable income to then even save for a deposit. So they're forever stuck in this cycle of just continuously having to rent a property. So those are the people that will probably find the most benefit if such a scheme is given the go-ahead. But is the scheme worth it? Is it going to be any good? Now, in my opinion, the key issues in the UK housing market right now, there are two of them. Number one is affordability, and number two is the lack of property. So covering off affordability, as we all know, we are now in a period where interest rates are much higher. The Bank of England have obviously been increasing the Bank of England base rate because they've been trying to tackle inflation. That's had an onward impact on swap rates and on the money markets, and therefore it's also had a huge impact on the lenders' rates. We've seen lenders' rates go from levels over the last 10 years or so in the 1 to 2% brackets up to now 4, 5, 6% brackets. Now, admittedly, rates are coming down a bit at the moment, but that still doesn't get away from the fact that even at 4%, the interest rates are 4 times higher than they were maybe a couple of years ago. So affordability is a real issue. We're seeing people now that are having to remortgage paying £300, £400, £500 a month more. And this isn't just people that have got mortgages on properties that they live in, it's also buy-to-let landlords, which is why the people that are renting are finding it more difficult to save for a deposit. Because when the buy-to-let landlords are approaching us as mortgage brokers to review their mortgage options, they're finding that the rental income that they're charging isn't enough to cover their mortgage. Therefore, they're having to increase the rental income in order to cover the mortgage that they can get, which in turn they pass on to the tenants. So it's a vicious circle, and it's just compounded by the fact that interest rates are higher, they're going to stay higher, and we've also got the cost of living crisis in the background that is eating away at people's affordability. So affordability is a real key problem in the housing market right now. But more than that, we've got the second issue, and to me that is the lack of housing supply, and decent housing supply as well. Because it seems that when you look in your local areas, when properties are being built, they all tend to be flats. Now, you might be able to get those on shared ownership, or you might be able to get them with housing association schemes, but flats also come with additional costs. Leasehold charges, maintenance charges, ground rent. Why are the government not focusing more on building affordable houses rather than affordable flats? In the UK, we have got an ever-growing population. The island isn't getting any bigger, but that ever-growing population needs somewhere to live, and the housing targets that the government set year in, year out, they always fail to deliver on the amount of houses that they can get built. So I think the real key issue, in my opinion, is the lack of real decent housing for people to live in. If you solve that problem, then I think you're going to solve the housing problem forever, because house prices will be at a level that everybody can afford because there are enough houses for everybody to live in. So my opinion is that is the key problem. Now, let's just say though, going back to this scheme, if it is approved, what are the consequences? Well, there's one real big consequence in my opinion, and that's negative equity. If you've only got a 1% deposit in your property, if house prices do continue to fall as they are doing at the moment, you're pretty quickly going to be in a negative equity position, which is going to cause you problems further down the line. And again, that can also have an impact on affordability issues, because when you've got a higher loan to value, the interest rates tend to be higher, meaning that the mortgage is less affordable. So again, it's a bit of a vicious circle, this particular product. On one hand, the government are thinking that it's going to help people that can't save for a deposit, but then on the other hand, it's probably going to be an unaffordable mortgage, or one that's going to create further problems down the line. So why are the government doing this? In my opinion, it's purely political, and it's because there is an election coming up. What you tend to find just ahead of any sort of budget that the government's going to be announcing is the leak of information about their intended proposals. This is a perfect example of that. What's happened here is the government have leaked that they're thinking of this idea, for the housing market to help people that really want to get onto the housing ladder. And they're doing this in hope that people like us as mortgage brokers are going to make content, and there's going to be lots of stories in the newspapers, and the government can gauge what the true feelings of the public are. Do they think it's a good idea, or do they think it's a bad idea? And therefore, is it a vote winner or is it a vote loser? So in my opinion, this has been done purely for political reasons, not the right reasons, which is genuinely solving the housing crisis, but actually the right reasons as far as the government are concerned, and that is keeping themselves in power. So that's the 99% mortgage scheme, the 1% deposit. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Hopefully you've picked up my feelings on this. I personally don't think it's a good idea. I think that the government should leave well alone. Try and solve the housing crisis by building more homes and just leave it at that. Stop playing with policy. Stop trying to think of new ideas and new mortgage products and things like that. Just stick to solving the housing crisis and nothing else. You start playing around with the housing market like this and you start to create bubbles. Property prices increase, then there's a crash. Interest rates have to go up, then they come down. It's just a never-ending problem when you start tinkering like this. If you solve the root cause problem, and that's building enough homes, I think you solve the problem forever. But what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea? What would you like to see the government do? What do you think are the real problems in actually getting onto the housing ladder or buying properties in the first place? Please do leave your thoughts in the comments, because I really do value them. But hopefully you found this video useful. And if so, please consider subscribing and do follow me for more content.